Good morning. I'm Jean Warnock. Along with Susan Blattner, I'm a co-founder of the Family Success Institute. Some really interesting, great things have happened over the summer, I think, and I guess we're really excited to share with you where we're going. I'd like to turn it over to Tom.
Thanks, Jean. And again, good morning to everybody. And we're so pleased that you're all able to join us. I am going to, we have a really packed agenda today, and I know everybody's busy, so we're going to try to move through stuff as quickly as we can. I have never been very good with technology, but I'm even less with figuring out who's actually here. So I'm going to go ahead with my greetings as if people are here. And I hope if they're not here, they will hear me anyway. So first of all, I want to mention Seal Zalkin and the announcement of her retirement, because Seal has been a tireless advocate for children and families in New Jersey, and she's accomplished so much. And I wanted to congratulate her on not only retirement, but all the tremendous work that she has done over the years with all of us. And one of the things that we're hoping is that this frees up some time for her to work with Rose and me on other advocacy issues. So Seal, if you're on, I hope you're on. Thank you so much for everything that you have done. I hope you have a chance to rest for about a week, and then we look forward to continuing our association. So congratulations, and a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous impact in the state. Secondly, the other person I'm not sure who is here or not is one of the founding members of the Family Success Institute, who hasn't been with us for a bit. He's now the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Education at the state, but Cary Booker did respond that he was going to be with us. So Cary, if you are here, welcome back, and hope you're well. And we're so pleased that you're able to join us. A lot of you have heard about Monmouth Acts, because the Monmouth County Family Success Initiative, in a lot of ways, sort of exemplifies what this whole movement is about. And I'm so happy that a number of people from Monmouth County have joined the learning community today. And I just wanted to mention a few folks, and please excuse me if I'm missing people, but so the first person I want to mention is Wendy DePedro. Wendy is the executive director of the Monmouth Mental Health Association, Monmouth County Mental Health Association. And the Monmouth County Mental Health Association over the years has been sort of the cutting edge premier mental health association in the state in terms of advocacy and innovation. And Wendy's been just a tireless leader around not only dealing with issues of mental illness, but also working on issues of mental health. So Wendy, welcome. Tyler Bro is with us. Tyler is the director of the Monmouth Acts Community Engagement Network. And the Community Engagement Network is actually a formal way for the public-private partnership to connect with grassroots organizations and the residents that they represent. And Tyler, I think, has already made 150 contacts or so in the community. And so the idea of tying people who live in the community with their trusted leaders to the quote establishment is something that we wanted to formalize. And Tyler, I'm really happy that you're to be with us today. Anita Boot, who has been with us before, but there's this whole concept in marketing about networking and networking and networking and networking. But what I've found is that if networking doesn't have an electrical charge to it, it falls flat. And Anita is the electrical charge that seems to be infused into every network that I've ever been involved with for her. So Anita, we're so pleased that you're here. And Anita has brought with her Jacob Farbman, who's the executive officer in residence at Brookdale County College. And equally important is that Jacob is a major mover in the New Jersey Council of Community Colleges, and is very, very interested in creating pathways for financial security for people who have not had those pathways. And Jacob, we're just absolutely pleased for you to be with us, and we look forward to working with you. Darcy Dobbins, who mentioned that we've seen each other a lot this week. But Darcy reminds me that we go way, way back in the family success movement, to the early days of family success centers. Darcy's the director of the Bayshore Family Success Center, and a tireless worker on behalf of families. So Darcy, so glad that you're with us. And in a bit, I'm going to introduce another Monmouth Axe leader who, when I describe him, it's an indulgence for me to have him with us, because he's an inspiration, and you'll hear from him shortly. Also, one of the sites that's been so instrumental in the family success movement is Camden County. And I'm very delighted that two board members from CPAC, the Community Planning and Advocacy Council of Camden County, have joined us. Anita Wemple, Anita, welcome. Anita is vice chair of the board of CPAC, and Rochelle Rivera is the secretary of the board of CPAC. And it's just fantastic that the two of you have joined us, and the amazing work that you have done, and also the amazing work that you're going to do. So really happy that that those of you who I mentioned are here, and I'm sure that I've missed some. And we will. One good thing about this format is as we go through these processes and people join, we can. And hi, Carlos. One of the things, Carlos Rodriguez is joined us from the Community Food Bank of New Jersey. And one of the things that Tim has found so amusing about our movement is, because we don't have any authority or we don't have any portfolio, we basically can do whatever the hell we want to do, which is a sort of an interesting phenomenon these days. So also I want to mention that the First Lady is holding Nurture New Jersey Family Festival in Newark this weekend. And so we've sent that announcement out. She's been a big supporter of our movement and has actually expressed her support for our Bill of Rights. And I hope people, if they're able to, join her. And I want to point out that Carolyn McCombs, who was our board member and the head of New Destiny Family Success Center in Patterson, actually helped the First Lady create her first family festival. So we feel a very close connection to Nurture New Jersey. And then I also want to remind you that Karen Andrade Mims, who is here, has been sending out notices about the absolutely incredible conference that's going to be coming up later in the fall. And hope everybody can join in that. We're a co-sponsored with Karen, and she's just a tireless advocate for fathers in New Jersey. So I hope that I haven't missed anybody, but if I have, speak up. We'll have an opportunity. Kathy Rowe will make sure that people have a chance to talk with us. So before we go into voices from the community, we did do a lot of work over the summer, Gene. And what we're finding, our original premise is that we think we have the right idea for the future. We know that the right idea needs both policy and financial support from on high. But we've been convinced from the beginning, unless this is based upon a movement of people in the community, it's really not going to flourish and be what it can be. And what we found through all the work that you all are doing, that our a sort of simple assumption about the power of community is actually beyond our imagination in terms of its power. So kids are going back to school. We're all through our summer. We think this is going to be a momentous year for the family success movement. And it's only going to happen if everybody pitches into this next stage of our work, which Tim is going to describe a little later in the agenda. But before we get going too far into the fall, I think what I wanted to do is just express my gratitude for everything that you have done, and my gratitude, as importantly, for everything that you're going to do. Lucy Vandenberg, welcome. It's nice to see you. We're thrilled that you're here. So I'm going to jump right into voices from the community, and then, because Tim's section of the agenda is the really amazing progress that we've been making over the summer. So as I mentioned, kids are back in school, and one of the things we wanted to do is hear from somebody who is actually with the kids going back to school. And so we are fortunate to have our first voice from the community, and his guest and colleague be none other than somebody who I've referred to as our guru of family success. He does his work in Newark, and he is the one who coined for us the phrase during the pandemic, we cannot go back to normal because normal is what got us here. And so Thomas Owens,
Hello.
take the floor.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Thank you, Tom. It was interesting. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves to do things from a kid's point of view and not an adult's point of view. And part of the thing I wanted to do today was bring a young person on. But then I was reminded nicely by the principal and the teachers, they're in school. They're in at 9:30, so they couldn't join us today. But I talked to some of the young people I deal with, and the one thing is real short today is I would remind everybody, number one, be curious. Ask them how they're feeling, and don't just, we tend to, as adults, prescribe the way that we think, the solutions we think they need. And I've learned anything over this pandemic is don't prescribe, ask them what's going on and what they're feeling. And I would challenge everybody on the call today, just this week, have a conversation with a young person and just ask that question. No, don't do the prescription that we do, and I got this program and I've got that. Just say, hey, how are you feeling? What's going on with you? And the stuff they tell you is fascinating. And the one thing that's kind of a note that I hear a lot from them is that they're looking at us and they're looking at how we're doing and how we're handling it. It's almost to the point where we're telling them, be calm, it's going to be okay. At the same time, we're sweating and shaking and thinking that they're going to believe us, because sometimes it's just important to say to them, hey, I'm as nervous as you are right now. I don't know what's going on. We're holding it together. So my note this week, Tom, is really simple. Is just everyone just be curious. Take the time to ask young people what exactly is going on with you. And one of the things we're looking at doing this year in the schools is working with in our mentoring app, where we're challenging teachers and administrators in every school to connect the young people using technology. And it's a simple hit that every week, very simply, just reach out to these young people via the app. Hey, how are you? Are you good? If a young person wasn't in school that week, ask them, hey, we didn't see you in school today. What's going on? And if we can create that, and working with the superintendent here in Newark, if we create that culture that everyone's getting checked on, someone's asking you, how are you? Everyone's asking you a question about what's going on with yourself. I think it creates the equity between us and young people. So in a nutshell, my thing this week for young people and for us, be curious, ask questions. And I would ask right now, if anybody on this call this week actually had a conversation with a young person, and what did they tell you about what's going on? I'm just gonna, Tom, if indulge me for 1 second. If anybody could just talk about what the young person said about what they're dealing with right now, I'd love to hear it.
My grandson just
Right.
Entered middle school. So he says, a lot of new people, different people. He said, but it's okay. It's been good. So they've been getting out. And he says, so far, so good. He's enjoying it.
Good. See, and what you just brought up is a big point, that also a lot of times when we deal with young people, we're always thinking about the trauma, and we're always the trauma-informed care. And I go to some, and we've talked about this on this call before. Sometimes somebody's got to bring some joy into that meeting. We're talking about kids. They laugh, they have fun, even in the midst of everything else, they still manage to work through it. And maybe we should also, lean on their strength and not just look at them as little trauma boxes, right? Anyone else have something that a young person told them this week? Thank you for that.
One of the things that we do at Brookdale is for the first week of school, understanding that we're going to have a lot of new students, even, and of course, returning students, but we try to have as many administrators, faculty, staff, in the hallway, just there as they walk in the door, hello, do you know where your class is? How can I help you? And at first they're reluctant because
Mhm.
it's an indication of needing help. And very quickly after that, the line just forms, and they hold up their phone and they say, this is the room I need to go to, and it's a great way of creating that bond to start off, have a good start to the semester.
Thank you. I love the fact that you did the hallways. Having worked at a school for a long time, I always remind people the hallway is the most important place. When I walk into someone's school and they tell me everything they're doing in the building, I just say, walk me around the hallway during the class change, and I'll know everything I need to know about your relationship to students. If you can walk that hallway and nobody's giving you dap, nobody's hugging you, no one's asking you, can I come to your office? No one's talking to you, you're not connected.
Right.
It should take you an hour to walk around the hallway. And once you get to that point, you feel much better because you actually know you've made a connection. So once again, Tom, thank you. And thank you for the people that leaned in. Be curious, ask them, and they'll fascinate you. And for me, young people have informed every level of the work that I do, to the point that we're actually now forming a district-wide youth advisory council for all the mentoring we do, that is going to go through that screening of young people. Is this valid? Does this make sense? Adults, we can get in the room and think it makes a lot of sense. And kids look at it and say, that makes no sense for me. So we're shifting this year, where we're going to have a district-wide advisory council. It's going to be young people telling us, is it working or not? So thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Thomas. Those are wise and challenging words to actually talk to the people who are here to be supportive of. What a unique idea.
Imagine, I'd say this, Tom, real quick. Imagine for adults, and a lot of us, imagine you go to your doctor and the doctor you sit down with the doctor and they look at you and say, take these red pills. And you say, why? So don't worry about it. I'm a doctor. I've studied, I've got degrees, but you didn't ask me what hurt. Doesn't matter. I've got the degrees and I know what I'm doing. So just take the red pills and come back in a week. You never go to that doctor again. And a lot of times we kind of prescribe stuff for students and never ask them what hurts. So maybe that's why I say just be curious has been our motto.
Terrific. As I'm watching the screen, I'm watching my friend Wendy DePedro's smile, because she expresses things through her face. And I had mentioned, Wendy, about your work not only in dealing with issues of mental illness, but your strong interest in mental health. And I was just wondering what your smile was about.
I just think his comments are wonderful. It's like this be curious and the asking the questions is exactly what you need to do. We do a lot of work in schools in Monmouth County, and I hear from my team all the time, their approach and, in engaging youth, and he's just really spot on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. So speaking of hearing from the voices of people that we're here for.
Hello?
Oh,
sorry.
Kathy Rowe, who you all know from her trying to interfere with Tim's and my, rhetoric, is actually had her Parents Inc. conference a couple weeks ago, and at that Parents Inc. conference had the first community action forum, and it seemed to be a pretty successful kickoff to our program that you'll hear about from Tim. And Kathy, I think you have some special guests for us to hear from, and you're going to describe, what happened.
Thanks, Tom. I'm really excited this morning to, again, talk about the community forums that we were lucky enough to do the first one at our conference in June, not a couple weeks ago. It was June, Tom. That's how fast this summer has gone. And I'm really excited. We were able to show you a little bit of a video, but today, two parent leaders, really special parent leaders, have joined us this morning to share, some of their thoughts and their experiences. Thomas, like you were saying, it's not enough to prescribe to people. And that's what we've done for how many years, the social services and agencies. This is what you need. We have this program, we have this funding. And yet what happens is we don't meaningfully engage. with parents and community members. And these forums, what I'm so excited about is this is, to me, after how many zillions of years of focus groups that never went anywhere, this is the first chance I think we have of truly engaging in a meaningful way, not just parent voices, but sharing power and having them speak up and tell us what they need. So again, I'd like to introduce we have two great parent leaders. One is a grandma who runs our grandmother support group in East Orange. She's been doing it for, gosh, almost 10 years now. Aprilis Majid. And Kathy Eckert, who comes from Monmouth County and has been working with parents in Monmouth County for probably close to 20 years. And so I'm going to turn it over to Aprilis to talk about her experience with attending the forum and her experience in trying to provide feedback and telling folks what grandmas need, what parents in East Orange need. So Aprilis, I'd love to have you jump on and let us know what you were thinking.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Aprilis Abdul Majid, and I belong to the grandparents group of the Family Success Center of East Orange. The name of our group is Nana's Love. We meet every week, and it's a trying time for our community. We try to help grandparents with their grandchildren. In our group, we have parents who have custody of their grandchildren. We have grandparents who have adopted their grandchildren. And we have grandparents who just have fun with their grandchildren. But there are a number of things that we do need, like tools to help our community. As far as this year went by with the pandemic, we need help with technology, where grandparents are not too familiar with online classes and things like that. So they do need help to be able to know if their children are at class when they at the computer. We need help with just even in my community, we have a big Haitian community where sometimes you would see flyers and it's only in English and Spanish. And these people would not be able to attend or know what's happening because it's not written in their language. It's true that we want everybody to speak English, but then they have to have something in their own language. So these are one of the things that we require. Then we need help with like after school programs where some children might need help with their homework. So we need somebody to kind of help and tutor them. So far, our group, we held on even through the pandemic. We had to learn how to do conference calls because we're seniors. We learned how to get on Zoom, and it was, a trial thing because some people are not even familiar with their phones. These are things that we need somebody to help them to navigate the phones. But all in all, I think that if we get help to do some of those things, our community would flourish more.
Aprilis, you were telling me about the Family Success Centers and how they used to have parent advisory councils. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, we did. We had an advisory board where we had a segment of the community, some people from the community that would be able to tell us what was happening. So we had like teachers, we had a nurse, we had students, We had everybody so they could tell you what was going on in their part of where they belonged. And even for me, I just walked in one day and they said, "Oh, we don't have a Muslim. So would you like to be the Muslim lady?" So I said, "Oh, sure." So I could tell them what's happening in my community. So everybody would quite understand, you know, what was happening and what was needed. And with that, having all those people, so you could get like an all around kind of feeling of what we needed. You need to know what's happening in the schools. You need to know what's happening in the medical community. You know, like the nurse could say, "Oh, well, we had so many people had the flu or whatever." The children could give that perspective on what was happening in the school, even if the teacher said what was happening, but they could say how they felt. So having an advisory board really, really does help the center or the organization to know what we really, really need.
Thank you, Aprilis. You have been you are a champion of so many parents and grandparents in East Orange. Well, I don't know what we would do without you. And Aprilis and I talked a couple of days ago, and we found out we apparently have raised the same biological son. So thank you, honey, and keep advocating. Our next parent leader is Kathy Eckert. Kathy's been doing Parents of the Bay Shore Parent Support Group in Keansburg for almost 20 years. We're thrilled to death that Monmouth Cares provided funding for us this year. And Kathy, take it away.
Hi, I'm Kathy Eckert. I do run the Parents Along the Bay Shore. I've been running it for almost 21 years, and I love it. But Monmouth Cares and getting this grant was a great thing. I've had Monmouth Cares in my life with my son many years ago, and I had the family support organization in Long Branch involved in my son's care when he was younger. The only thing I feel that family support could do is give us more weekly meetings, give us more resources, more services, be more involved, because I really only saw that person like once in a blue moon. They would check in maybe every 2 weeks or that, but I just feel like the communities and parents need more help and being more proactive and getting more services to help our kids before it gets worse, before the parent gets stressed, before the child gets worse in their behaviors or their, disabilities. It would definitely be a big help. I'm trying to grow my group this year, hoping to, reach out to a lot of parents. And like I said, we can definitely use some more resources and information and more involvement in helping our kids to flourish and, grow in their communities and become, good people in life. So hopefully we can get some more grants and stuff to help parents and help children, live a better life and not be so stressed and, so hopefully you guys can help with that. We would greatly appreciate it in our communities, and the parents would really be happier too. Because, in these times, life is really tough right now, financially, just like with everything. Parents are pushing, the kids are pushing, and, especially living through a pandemic, it really took a toll on everybody. And we're just trying to come back from that and needing even more because of all the mental stuff we went through the pandemic, the kids, what they went through, what the parents went through. It's really been tough, and we just want to get ahead of that and get services to help our kids and our parents grow. Okay, thank you.
Kathy, thank you so much. You are a real role model, and I think what you said is the most important is that people who run agencies, I don't know how they really know how their services are working unless they have the feedback and the voice of parents. And Kathy has been that all along in Monmouth County. And we're also very excited that Kathy's group and the Father Time group in Monmouth County, we're going to be hosting parent leader training. And that will be a free training open to all parents who want to learn leadership and advocacy skills so that they're already, when you have a child, you're already their most important advocate. But we have found is that when we can provide some extra tools for parents, it just really makes them so much stronger in advocating for what their family needs. And to me, that's what family success is all about. So are there any questions for Aprilis or Kathy before I open it up to the whole community, the whole learning community?
Yeah, I have just wanted to say to Aprilis, I'm from Progressive Parents, and we offer services to grandparents and kinship providers. So I put my contact information in the chat box, and please reach out to us and we will see what we can do to support you.
Oh, thank you. That's going to be very helpful.
Mhm.
Thanks so much, Beverly.
Well,
Any other questions or comments?
I would like to thank Aprilis and Kathy for what they shared with us. And something that Aprilis said really connected with something that I was involved with yesterday. I just want to quickly share it. Of all things, I was doing some research about the child care tax credits and the earned income tax credit. And what's interesting, of the 22% of the American population that has not filed for the earned income tax credit that are eligible, the greatest percentage of people who don't file are grandparents that are raising their grandchildren. And I got this from the IRS website, so I believe it. And so, you know, that credit averaged last year about $1,300, you know, per child. But more importantly, with the new child tax credits, they can be as high as $3,600 a year per child. So a grandparent raising a grandchild, that second credit is not based on income, but many grandparents in our state raising grandchildren might be eligible for $5,000 up to $5,000 in a refundable credit, meaning
Wow.
cash in their pocket, if they knew about it and if they were to apply. So listening to Aprilis, it's something that I think our Family Success Institute needs to talk about, how we can be supportive, and we do have a financial empowerment work group, and we can bring it to that group and figure out how outreach to grandparents and support to them in this coming tax year could be done. So sorry for the long comment, but I just wanted to let Aprilis and Kathy know that we're here to listen, but we're also here to act.
That's very interesting information that I can pass on to my group.
Yeah.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.
That's great.
You know, one thing I would like to mention, because I mentioned SEAL and ACNJ, is that Charlie Venti, who has been a tireless advocate for family success and a member of our board, is now the chair of the board of ACNJ. And so we're looking forward to his leadership there and his partnership with us as we move ahead. I want to move the agenda along a little bit because Tim's got a huge amount of information to share with you. So I'm really pleased to introduce Reverend Sparks. And I must say, Reverend Sparks, that this is an indulgence for me because every time I hear you talk, you inspire me. So Reverend Sparks is a pastor at the Bethel AME Church in Freehold, and he'll talk a little bit about the work he's doing there. And he has also become a very, very active leader in the Monmouth Acts movement itself. But I think more importantly to me, and I think this section of our agenda is always about, you know, people and, you know, person to person and all the, you know, sort of the art of family success. That Dr. Sparks is, well, you'll have to hear from yourself. And I will not embarrass him any further, but I'm so pleased that you're here with us, and let's hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Tom. Good to be with all of you this morning. Part of the pandemic opens up some challenges for the church, as many of you know. And since people couldn't come to the building, it made it very challenging having to use technology and try to stay in connection with people. One of the things I told my congregation, for us to continue to be viable, we must get outside the building and do the work of God in the community. While we never mention his name, we may not quote a scripture, but the actions that we take to help people is the most important thing. And that's what I've strived to do. I've developed a theme for myself as a personal thing, building relationships to create collaboration. I don't think any of us can do anything on our own. We have some great agencies on this line. And one of my hopes is, instead of creating the wheel every time, that we can work together, and whatever you've put together, let's figure out how we can work it. I've seen a number of you, Tom, at Mentor Newark. I'm trying to figure out how we can get a Mentor Freehold or a Mentor Monmouth County. Get involved with the family success groups to ensure that we're able to connect with the families. And one of the biggest things that I got introduced with Monmouth Acts was the diversity, equity, inclusion, and why the minority, particularly Black and Brown people, were not taking advantage of programs that may be available. Initially, I thought it was pride, didn't want people to know their business. And that may be true for some. Others is the fact that the experiences they may have had with an agency that's caused them not to want to go back, even though they need the services. They're not going back. And there may be other reasons, but that was an eye-opening to understand sort of the relationship. So in working with Monmouth Acts, we're advocating that we move toward, and I know this is not a good word, a consumer-based interaction with people rather than a policy base. I understand we have to follow policies, but if we understand the needs of the community, then we reach them where they are. And so we wear a number of hats. The pastor is one hat. We work with the Monmouth County Prosecution Office as a chaplain. We are the convener or president of the Freehold Clergy Association. And we started 2 nonprofits to ensure that diversity, equity, inclusion is created between organizations, as well as develop programs that people can go to. The other thing that that we began to do in developing those relationships is that as people see what you're doing, a lot of talking happens. We talk about a lot of plans and what we want to do. But when people actually see and you know that you have a vested interest in the community, they will begin to trust you more. And so they will begin to see that you are able to help meet their needs. They will see that you see what's going on in their particular situation. And it's not just me as an individual, but bringing all these organizations together so that if I happen to make a phone call to one of you, I can connect them with you. I don't have to be involved. And one of the things Tom asked me, I was meeting with him, he said, what do I see in 5 years this looking like down the road? My response to him was, I don't even have to be in the picture. Matter of fact, I shouldn't be in the picture. It should be the fact that because of our collaboration, that we work together, whether it's me, or whether it's Tom or any of you, that you make a phone call to assist. And since we have so many people around New Jersey, knowing that we have connections around New Jersey, then we can bring the services or like services to your particular area, even if we're not in that community. And that shares resources so that we don't feel that we're alone or we're by ourselves. So it was great to be here. I don't want to hold up the agenda, but thank you, Tom, for inviting me. And I look forward to working with many of you as we move forward.
Thanks so much, Ron. And I remember that conversation we had. And one of the things that came across to me, the word that came across to me was egolessness. And the idea that, we're not doing this for ourselves, and we're not doing this for our organizations or special interests, that if we fulfill our mission, in a certain sense, we'll disappear and people will be better off. So thank you. You are a true inspiration to me and everybody who you've been working with. So thanks so much. So now we're going to move into the second half of our agenda. And before we do that, one observation that I'd like to make is that all this feedback around people working with and for people, if we follow through on what we're talking about, this represents a transformational shift in an industry. This is an industry that has grown to be, billions and billions and billions of dollars. And if in fact we're going to transform ourselves into being, as Reverend Sparks says, responders to consumers, it's going to take a lot of work for everybody, for parents to get the support to articulate and demand what they want and need for the kids in their lives. It's going to take a lot of transformation for providers who are used to having most of the say in terms of what goes on with programs. It's going to take a huge amount of transformation in terms of policymakers and people who work in government to think of themselves as servants of people in the community. And we're all going to have to do this together. So, but the other thing that I would like to say is that for all this wonderful work at the human level, it is not going to be possible unless the policies and funding and training and all the aspects of this industry themselves transform. And one of the primary objectives of the Family Success Institute is to introduce activities and policy change and funding change that will actually make this movement be something that other than like an incremental step in a right direction. And so I'm really pleased to turn the agenda over to Mr. Carden, who, my dear friend for many years, who has given us such life to the aspirations of our Family Success Institute, to talk about some of the progress we've made over the summer. Timothy?
Well, thank you, Tom, and always for that flattering introduction. The progress that the Family Institute is making is actually best reflected by the comments that we've heard from our voices from the community today, because what we aspire to be is a catalyst for a movement that has its own energy, its own purpose, and actually its own direction. And the direction emerges from those who are most directly involved in achieving success for families in small and large ways. And let's not distinguish that small means less. Small means it's an important and critical step along an arduous path. And our efforts have been enormously enhanced this summer because of the people joining us today and many who are not there. And also, and this is one of the things I wanted to announce, the extraordinary support for our nation organization that we've received from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. We this summer succeeded in receiving a second of 2 grants to help support the work that you're witness to here today, which is organizing community action forums, which are a vehicle for exchanging ideas and for bringing them to light in ways that are not directed from the top down, but rather are reflective of what individuals, families, and communities are experiencing and what the obvious sometimes needs for resolution are. I'm going to stop for 1 minute and we have a number of people joining us today on the phone. And if you could mute your phone while you're listening to us, unless you're speaking, that would be very helpful so that all of us can hear the speaker, me being the least important of those. So the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation principle that we have aligned ourselves with is in pursuit of the social determinants of health. And if the comments we heard today, this morning, from Thomas and Aprilis and Kathy and Reverend Sparks are perfect evidence that these are the voices that need to be heard and that are being heard in greater amount through the efforts that we are making collectively. Going back to what Reverend Sparks commented on collaboration, this is an institute dedicated to collaboration, and that is just one of the achievements we've had. The community action forums in this context are well along their path to execution or activity. As Kathy Rowe pointed out, we have had one in New Brunswick associated with Parents Inc. We've had another in Camden with the community, with both the Center for Family Services and CPAC. And there are more planned. In fact, there are over 20 expressions of interest by members of our learning community and other partners to host one of these gatherings. And we expect them to move forward quickly. The organization and execution of that has been great because of our Director of Strategic Initiatives, who would be making this presentation if she just hadn't had to undergo significant dental surgery. And that's Erica Harris DeVal. And many of you have received email or communications from her about organizing these. And she is really leading that effort and doing an extraordinary job. We have been informed by the forums we have held, and both Kathy Rowe and Retha Onatiri, who really helped spearhead that with Erica, have been instrumental in helping guide it. But in addition to that, we have been fortunate, and again, in collaboration, to have a planning or sort of a strategic guiding committee. It is an open committee, and I'm mentioning it because anyone on this Zoom or others who want to contribute their thoughts and ideas to it are welcome. But members of the learning community have come together to help us figure out how best to elicit, capture, and then propel the voices that you're hearing today in a coherent fashion to promote family success across the board in both the small and intimate ways that it occurs in community and on the broader ways where we redirect policy, program, and resources to ensure that there is both, in addition to the resources, as Kathy pointed out, additional resources, but also alterations in policy to invest in success when we know that we spend the vast amount of public resources on spending on distress. And so if anyone on this has thoughts or ideas, we convene periodically, but let me or Erica or Lori Henry, who has been our glue communicator to the whole learning community, know that you would like to participate in subsequent discussions, or if you haven't expressed interest in hosting a forum, we want to hear from you as well. We are developing information around this, a toolkit, sample questions, how to organize it. We want to record these forums so that we can capture that voice and reiterate it into other forums that people should hear from. And that is an important part of the exercise as well. I do think that we don't have a perfect formula yet. I tend to say that we are building the airplane as we fly it, but we will continue to do that and succeed because of the wisdom, insight, and support that all of you are providing. To give you one quick summary of that, I want to ask Megan Lepore, who has been instrumental in a number of these activities, to catch us up on where the progress she's made with the Center for Family Services and an upcoming community action forum in Camden is progressing. So Megan, can I ask you to share a little of where things stand and observations that I may have missed in making?
Oh, Tim, you are nothing if not comprehensive. So I won't have too much to add to your very detailed overview. But first off, just wanted to say, that Center for Family Services is, always happy to be at these meetings, but is also happy to be another, I guess, 2.0 guinea pig following the great precedent that Parents Inc. set. But what we've done and what I've appreciated for anybody who hasn't joined a meeting yet and is considering doing a community action forum in their area, what I would say is that the meetings have been really, I think, illuminating for all of us, is to really have a platform to kind of talk this out and decide, how we need to keep, some kind of level set baseline for every community who's going to participate in this, but that there is so much flexibility in how you kind of deliver it. Because as everybody on the call has said, your community best, your resident leaders best. So the 8 questions that Erica helped us put together are really a guidepost. So we're kind of able to deviate from that, but we're deviating based on how the community is leading the conversation. And that's really what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to set up the pins and everybody else knocks them down in terms of what's important. And I think, Kathy and Retha have been very instrumental in reminding us that the 2 words here that we're really trying to define is family success. And we're only trying to define it as, again, kind of this high level overview of what everyone is telling us and trying to put all of that great, rich information. I don't want to call it data because it's so personal from everybody. And it's such, from their, the view from their stoop, as it were. But how we're really pulling that all together to create a format that's going to be able to provide a baseline for advocacy, provide a baseline for telling the story through a symposium that'll be coming up hopefully early next year. But getting to the way that we've done it in Camden, I wish Deanna was on the call. If she is, I can't see her in the screens, the boxes on my screen, but we kind of did a yeoman's job of putting
I'm here.
Oh, hi. I'm so glad you're here. But we kind of, from the last meeting that we had about community action forums, Deanna said, oh, we have our event coming up, maybe we can do it there. And we had another sidebar right after that. We got a videographer who is also a photographer, who is a local Camden resident, who's a delight. And we've used her before, and we pulled it all together. And Andrew Selby from CPAC also, kind of blessed the idea, since he was kind of also helping to run the event. But we had CFS there. We had a videographer who's also going to do the CFS event that we have scheduled for September 29th at Pine Street at our location within the Camden Promise neighborhood. We're also scheduling another one for early October at the Kroc Center. And the reason why we're also doing that is because it's in a different area of the city. And though Camden is 9 square miles, transportation still is an issue, as I'm sure it is for all of our communities. And then we also have, folks who are very community, tightly knit to their community and would rather sit and talk about these events in their community. So the Kroc Center is where the CPAC event took place, but they do have a very close-knit senior community. And we want to make sure that we're also looking at ages and stages across the board here, so that we're getting that representative voice from everyone, because the issues that are facing young families may or may not be the same that are facing our seniors. So we want to make sure that, especially the grandparents as parents note that was mentioned earlier at the top of the call, is realized. I think Deanna had a member who participated in her segment, who was talking about, they don't know that there's resources. They don't know that there's help. And I'm sitting there kind of observing in the back of the room. I'm like, we have a program. Why doesn't anybody know about our program? But it's illuminating to us, again, in a small community that's been around, an organization that's been around for a century. And it's like, we are doing a really terrible job of promoting our programs, right? So there's a lot of self-inventory that's also able to take place as organizations. So I behoove you that it is such a wide-reaching opportunity for all of us to be a part of this. Again, not to overwhelm our community, but to really take a step back and also evaluate our own role in our communities. And are we doing the job that we've all signed up to do as well as we can? Have we taken enough of a back seat when we need to and kind of zipped our lips and said that we are not necessarily, telling everybody what to do, which we all say we're never going to do, but somehow it's still coming across that way. So in a lot of this, we do need to step back and get out of our own way so that our residents and our resident leaders and everybody else can shine, because that's why we're here. So we are so much looking forward to, our community action forums. I mean, my definition of family success today is that my kids made it to school on time. So everybody has their own version, and mostly that I also made this meeting on time. So that's also a feather in my cap today. But I just wanted to thank Deanna. I continue, in our little nook in Camden, continue to learn so much from you. I learned so much from this community, not only how to do my job better, but how to, stay out of the way of the residents who know much better than I do, and be a true, authentic listener. I'm trying every day to do that better. But I, again, behoove you to join the meeting, even if you can't, stand up one in your own community. Please come and be a sounding board for us to make sure that we're doing our best job to get the information that we need. We're happy that we're going to be able to cut together some of this information, but we're also looking at, alongside CPAC, how we can also, in our own area, not only with the symposium, but use the information that we're hearing and show it back to the community as they look, we're going to do something with this. So again, thank you to all of you for inviting us to be a part of this.
Oh my goodness, Megan, thank you, and CFS for being an anchor in the development, not only of these forums, but in the development and growth of family success, not just the Institute, which has been incubated through CFS in many respects, but in the movement itself. And during your presentation, Tyler Bro wrote me that he has in fact undertaken a fair amount of his own outreach in this regard, and it feeds into what we're doing. And while it is not directly an interesting a community action forum, he is eliciting the same information and important substance that these forums are intended to capture and resource. And I just think, Tyler, if you wanted to just take a minute to share with us what you're doing and how that work is progressing, and also how it can fold into what the aspirations of the community action forums are.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, so I go out in the community and I meet with leaders, often of grassroots and community-based, faith-based organizations, people that are in the business of helping people, many of which have volunteers that work for them. And I speak to them and I try to find out what the issues that they see on the ground are. And I also go to food distributions. I go to where people in need are, and I really discover a lot of explanations, I guess you could say, that help me to understand the narrative experience of people and what their struggles are. That without that context, things can be difficult to understand. And also it helps me to understand, my background is in law, and it's revealed to me how antiquated some of our policies, some of our laws are, and how participation in the democratic process, civic engagement is an important thing. But nonetheless, the way that I capture the information is by interviewing people and just doing it in an informal manner, but taking really good notes. And then I create a report, and I'm looking for feedback on this report from Monmouth Acts. That way, if it's not in the format that they desire, then maybe I could put it in another format. Getting people to read is sometimes a little challenging, especially getting a whole lot of people to read, 20 pages or something like that can be a challenge. So writing a summary letter, an executive summary, different ideas to kind of get the information out there. It's not direct community voice, but I've learned that can be a little time consuming to try to capture community voice, because it takes kind of building a relationship with the community over time, and valued input and things like that. But nonetheless, it's been very revealing to me. I'm definitely open to sharing it. And if any of those community leaders, or if you have a strategy for getting those community leaders involved in being leaders in their community to gather the voice that they share with me, I think that would be a great idea.
That's exactly what we hope to do through these forums, and we'll follow up and determine how we make certain that if there are specific individuals we should be reaching out to and encouraging to participate in this process, based on your experience with them, we're going to do that.
Tim, it's Wendy DePedro. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Please.
Hi.
do.
So if we have an interest in hosting a community action forum, would you be the person that I would need to reach out to?
Yes, Erica, send it to me, and you'll probably hear from Erica DeValve Harris, who is not on the call today. But yes, absolutely. And I'll make sure that I put my email in the chat shortly in case anyone doesn't have it already.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. I'm going to turn to another agenda item, but before doing so, I just wanted to touch base with Kathy Rowe, who has been, as you've heard, instrumental in sort of developing how we proceed with these forums and how we elicit commentary both from individuals in our meetings, but also across the board. Kathy, is there anything on the Community Action Forum that we haven't touched on that would be relevant to this audience, in addition to encouraging people, as Wendy just said, to put their name forward if they're interested in hosting one of these forums? You'd have to go off mute, but I can't see that you're talking.
Isn't this what I always yell at you guys about?
Yeah, exactly.
You're on mute, you're on mute. But I just like to piggyback on something that Megan said, whereas, as I think we all get very excited about hosting a forum and how are we going to do it with, the families and communities that we work with, I'm seeing it more as it's not just a one-shot deal. For us to be truly different as the Family Success Institute, I think this is a way that we jump in and get our feet wet for some agencies for the first time, but then continue those conversations. Deanna Cooper and I were talking about, it's not about that you had 5 people at the forum and now it's over. It's a way that we're learning and, very important learning how to bring the community in, how to hear them. And the only thing that's going to make us different is if we actually put policies forward based on what we hear. Otherwise, we're just another focus group.
Well said. And if I can, at the risk of being redundant, that it is the trust and intimacy that the members of the learning community and others in the community who are organizing these events represent that gives us the potential to elicit honest and real policy concepts from the ground up. And the forums and their design are a product of individuals on this Zoom and others who advocated for not having large group gatherings with single speakers, but rather going into, and in fact, as Megan pointed out, communities where transportation isn't easy, so don't make it a long distance of travel to get to it, and also hosting them in environments or venues in which members of that community are both comfortable and feel safe and trusted, and that they are going to be respected as well. So thank you all who've commented on this and who are actively engaged in this. It's what's making it succeed.
Tim, I have just one thought I wanted to add. I'm watching Dominique's face now in terms of this process, because one of the things when I first met Dominique is he said to me, let's not make promises we can't keep. And what Kathy's talking about in terms of, and Wendy, I'm thinking about the gathering you had at your resource center in Red Bank. The minute that we open this dialogue up, that's the transformation, because Dominique's not going to go into some forum in his community and not be honest and not take the words and the feelings of people and respond to them. So this is a risky venture. This what we're up to, and we have to make sure that we have methods to turn all these words and all this, I was about to say gobbledygook, but I won't say that, into action that people get the benefit of. So, action, action, action. So Dominique, without saying a word, you've said a lot.
Tom, Dave Armstrong has his hand up.
Great.
Yes, thanks, Kathy. Just real quick, thanks. I just wanted to bring my perspective as a parent partner in this process. I think it's great that you're going into the community, you're going to the source to find out what the needs are, instead of deciding at the big table and giving it to them, that you're inviting the parents to the table to discuss their needs in the community. We have to be intentional and authentic. And that's why the young lady said that maybe it should be consistent, or Kathy said it should be not just a one-time thing. We have to build that relationship, as the Reverend said earlier. So it's going to take more than one community action forum to really get down into the nitty-gritty of it. And I just want to thank you guys for allowing me in this space.
Well, David, thank you. And those words, that cautionary words, are very important. And as most of you know, a next step in this process is to gather the collective results of these forums and present them both with the participants in those forums, either through video or in person, in a statewide forum that would elevate this conversation to a level with business, government, philanthropic and nonprofit leaders, people in positions to actually implement the changes we're talking about. And this is also an easy transition to what our other initiative around two pieces of legislation, the Bill of Rights for infants, children, youth, and families, and the companion Community Recovery and Family Success Act. And turning immediately to the second one of these, it calls for a state family success council in which the individuals we are soliciting and engaging in this discussion are members of that council, helping to both develop, design, and fund family success service networks in communities designed by and within the communities that they are intended to serve. An enormously ambitious transformation from where we are today, but it is directly in line with what your comments and others who reiterated as well, David, of ensuring that this exercise is not, as Kathy described, another focus group in which the results are sort of shelved and everyone nods their head and moves on with life as it is and was. In the context of that, where we are in the legislation, I want everyone here to know that we have sponsors of both of those bills in both chambers of the legislature, coming from 7 counties. It is not an isolated initiative at the legislative level, and the conversations within the executive branch are progressing as well. But the Senate bills will be, one was reintroduced just before the session ended. The Community Recovery and Family Success Act was reintroduced with a new bill number. It's now Senate Bill 2887. But far more important, it includes 3 years of funding as a part of that bill. 3 years of building up family success service networks in individual counties and growing from $72 million in this fiscal year, as we would have to get up and off the ground, to $480 million in FY 2025, for a total of over $770 million, which is the current request in that bill. The Assembly version of that bill, currently A828, will be reintroduced as soon as the Assembly holds a quorum session this month, later this month, and will include that same funding request. And we have made it clear that there are not only state existing resources available, but that there are new and not yet designated resources that can be used to help fund these initiatives. That includes American Rescue Plan funds, money from the Johnson & Johnson opioid settlement, which is over $640 million, money from the cannabis tax revenues, which are directed specifically, 70% of the revenues from cannabis taxes are to be directed to communities that have suffered as a result of excessive law enforcement regarding drug use and related activities. And finally, that there's a substantial state surplus because the state has recovered financially, at the top at least. And that gives us room and a moment in time to move ahead with this, as we recognize that the vast monies in the state puts out now go into distress services. Eventually, we need to migrate money from distress into success. But those resources, which are not going to be untapped and available forever, are available today, and it creates an opportunity for us to say, don't try to reconstruct what is built over here, but rather let's start on a new initiative, prove its worth, prove how we can make families succeed and therefore reduce the demand and need for distress spending. That is a really positive development over the summer. The new Senate bill, the new Assembly bill, and the Bill of Rights is now in both chambers and will be, we hope, heard in committee later this month or in October. It is worth noting that the learning community has been an instrumental part of both the development of this legislation, but also your support of family success is a reflection that both executive and legislative branch see as requiring them to look differently at how we run our business. And as the family success initiatives in many of the counties, Monmouth Access, the one celebrated today, demonstrate, there is ample evidence that these methodologies and this approach works. The headlines in the last 2 or 3 days, in the papers about the reduction in child poverty across the country, among other things, point out that repeatedly children do better when their lives are stable. That's what family success represents. And it is extraordinary that it is as much in the news as it is, and it represents an opportunity, but it's an opportunity that this organization, as modest as we might see ourselves in a national perspective, is, we are reflective of that. We are reflective that that attention is being paid. This is a moment in time, and your voices to your community leaders, to your legislators, to the people you know, saying this is a time to move, is what is making a difference. And we need to amplify that in the days and weeks ahead. So, summary of our legislative update is that we have 6 sponsors in the Assembly. We have 3 significant sponsors of our Children's Bill of Rights in the Senate. We are building more support within the legislature day by day, and we expect to see these bills voted on and enacted within the balance of this year. And it will then be up to the results of our community action forums, the leadership that's represented here, and the communities that have participated to carry the ball forward in building a family success service network from the state through every single county in a way that fulfills the mission that we're describing here today as part of the family success movement. So that's the summary, Tom, of where we are at this moment.
Thank you, Timothy. Before we open up to questions, I just want to share a conversation I had with Jacob earlier this week. And Karen, I don't know if you remember, but when we came up with our 4 pillars, one of the pillars was combining safety and financial security. I don't know if you remember this, Karen Andrade, from way back. But
I do remember that, Tom.
and I think from your work with your fatherhood work, if people are not financially secure, they're not going to be safe. And it was the parents that told us this. And Jacob and I had a really interesting conversation about his work related to pathways to financial success. And that can only be viewed if we're willing to look at the life trajectories of people rather than responding to the crisis that people fall into when they don't have the support that they need in the first place. And I think that's probably one of the key elements of this whole family success movement, is to explain this in a way that anybody can understand from their own, their own lives. And Jacob, I don't know if you want to comment on just, briefly on, our conversation, but if we can't figure out ways because Tim, you talked about child poverty, yeah, and there has been a lot of progress, but at the same time, the disparities between people who have pathways to financial success and those who don't have also increased. So we're talking about a profound and important change, and it's not Democratic or Republican or this or that and the other thing. It's just, this is something that makes sense for our communities and our countries and our country and everything else. So Jake, I don't know if you want to make a quick comment on this or.
Sure. So first, Tom, thanks again for the invitation to be here today. And Anita, thank you for connecting me. And it's really a pleasure to hear from all of you. I see some familiar faces from my work in Trenton, and hope to get to know all of you a lot more closely. So, from our perspective, from the Council of County Colleges, which is the statewide nonprofit for all the community colleges, we're thinking about what role can we play to help in two specific areas. One, truly address systematic racism that exists in our state and our country and eradicate it. And two, what more can we do to provide economic mobility to the people who need it most? And there are a lot of ways to look at it. There are a lot of ways to frame it. But from what others have said today about going into communities, listening to what people's needs are, listening to what they require, and then trying to deliver as opposed to being prescriptive. So I don't want to be prescriptive on the line this morning as far as, oh, we've got this program, we got that program, and there are so many connection points. I think that would not serve certainly wouldn't serve me well in building a relationship with all of you. But I look forward to having further conversations with all of you and hopefully being a part of this group and bringing others from the council leadership into this, because there are so many critical connection points of the role that higher education in general can play. Whether it's providing those support services to grandparents, as we heard earlier, to learn a little bit more about technology and how to use it. We have 200,000 students who could quickly in 20-30 minutes show grandparents how to do exactly what they need to do with technology to help to support their grandchildren, right? And that's just one small bite of the apple. But there are ways we can work with all of you and with families to help provide those pathways to short-term credentials for folks who are looking for better jobs so they can become self-sustainable. And again, I just look forward to having further conversations with all of you and being a part of this group. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Jacob. So we have about 7 minutes, and we're about at the point where Kathy Rowe is about to say, shut up and let's hear from everybody. So before we do that, the final thing that I want to say is, and Charlie Venti is from our board and ACNJ leader and everything, is in the process of collecting, because people say, well, do you have any evidence that any of this stuff works? And we have evidence all over the place. What Charlie's going to be working on is collecting evidence from each of your programs about that demonstrates the value of this, and it's both quantitative and qualitative, because the experiences that people have with family success are as important as the numbers. So, and Charlie will be in touch with you about that. But the final thing I want to say before Kathy interrupts me is, I think we are on the brink of something. I mean, when Jean and I started this a number of years ago, we never could have imagined that there is a community of interest out there that you represent that could help us get this far. This is not an easy lift. Every time Dominique and I have a conversation, he always talks about what's the opposition, and the opposition is going to be fierce to this kind of transformational change. And the only way it's going to happen is if it comes from all of you. I mean, we are very, very, very dependent on your voice and your energy and your collaboration with us in trying to push this ahead. So you continue to inspire, our efforts. And Kathy, I will shut up.
Thanks, Tom. I really appreciate that. Since we only have a short time left, I'd like to throw it open to the learning community. Fall is such an important time for all of us. We're kicking off so many of our initiatives and all the work we've done this summer. So if anybody would like to make an announcement, share a thought about being at the meeting today, please just raise your hand.
Kathy, I have a question.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Good morning, everyone. I was wondering whether any of the community action forums are being held in Spanish.
Is anybody in the learning community here today doing them in Spanish? It's certainly an area we need.
Yes, particularly if we're looking at the city of Trenton, which is, the numbers are shifting in terms of the size of the Spanish-speaking population.
We have our Spanish-speaking staff participating, who are available to be in the room in case it's needed, but it also is representative. And I should also say that the folks on our team who are reaching out to recruit for the community action forums are Camden residents themselves. So that has facilitated the recruitment process for us.
Karen, reverting to my comment that we're building the airplane as we fly it, we specifically have as an objective, and again, Erica will lead this, to examine how the sort of voluntary requests for hosting a forum evolve, and where don't we have an adequate representation. So you've raised a really good point. We need to ensure that at the end of the day, if we don't have one specifically today, that we have appropriately, both by location and by agency, listed one or more forums that speak specifically to Hispanic populations and are available in that language. So, we talked initially about subject matter, geography, make certain that we get across the state. This is another really important issue of inclusion that we need to ensure. So your comment is both noted, and now we have to act on it.
Yes, I would love to partner with at least one of the organizations in the city of Trenton that's doing great work, Children's Home Society, and perhaps we can make that happen.
Perfect. Well, so assume that's a starting point, and we should probably reach beyond that, but that's a wonderful offer.
Okay. And then secondly, just want to do a blast about our statewide fatherhood conference so that everyone knows it's coming up Thursday, November 3rd. It's going to be held at the State Training Center, almost said DIFAS, the State Training Center. And you can register at our website, which is thefathercenter.org. There's a link there to registration. We're about halfway full at this point. So encourage folks to go on the website, thefathercenter.org, if you're interested in attending or supporting. Thanks, Kath.
Great. Thanks, Karen. Anybody else? Diana?
Just wanted to share again on the Spanish version, and Megan and I, when we had the questions, I think they sent them to us both in English and in Spanish. And that is something that we have also been looking at, and Tim, you'd be glad to hear. I've reached out to some Spanish speaking people who do not speak any English, and what they've been sharing with me, and I would like to get someone who speaks Spanish, is this app that's on the phone, and they talk to me in Spanish and it's translated in English. I hear it spoken back to me in English, and it's on the phone in English, and they seem very comfortable with that. So it's something I'm thinking about. I don't know if anyone else has done anything like that, but I have a good relationship with them. But the issue is, I don't know if I feel that comfortable doing a whole forum or a session in that, but I would be interested if anybody else has you know, use this app and find it helpful or not. And last thing is, I put the CPAC website address in the chat. We're having our Civic Leadership Awards on the 28th of September. We'd love to see anyone there who would like to come. Please feel free to go online and see that. But if anybody is using that app, you can email me or anything, because I don't want to belabor the meeting any longer, but I would like to know how it worked out. Thank you.
Anybody else? Announcements? Feelings?
I know that this isn't my moment, but I wanted to acknowledge, April, your comment about the Haitian community in East Orange. And as we move ahead with these forums, it's something that we should at least keep in mind in terms of whether it would be helpful and possible to engage them actively in some fashion, as they're an important part of your constituency. And the language barrier is just on my mind now as a result of Karen's astute comment.
Yeah, I will look into that. Thank you.
Thanks, Aprilis. Tom, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Good. Well, it's 10 o'clock, and I thank you all for your participation. And we have a lot of work to do, but I really do believe that we've gotten to the point that if we hang together and activate ourselves, that we can really push this thing ahead. So, and as Reverend Sparks says, this is not going to result in anybody doing great on their own. It's going to result in hopefully our institute disappearing, because the community has embraced and owned a transformational change in their future. So thank you everybody so much, and get ready. We got a busy year coming up. So thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so all.
Thank you.